All right, hello everybody. My name is Devin or Melixia, and once a week I bring a show to Twitch TV called Level Up Yourself. This is episode 2, and what it is a show about self-improvement. I have been fascinated with personal development and self-improvement for my entire life. I've read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of self-improvement books. I've done coaching. I've joined organizations and teams as a success coach, and this is my effort to bring this to you once a week on Twitch TV, the weirdest place to do this, and also on YouTube, which this will be syndicated to. No doubt some of you are watching this. This is the opportunity for anybody either live that's watching the show or from Ask.fm if we don't have questions live to ask self-improvement related questions, nutrition, physical, mental, anything you can think of. I can definitely cover, unless of course I don't know about it, in which case I'll tell you, but there hasn't been a question like that yet. So we're going to get started, and I'm excited for this show. I'm going to get started with a rather light question, which is from Ask.fm, and that's just so I can get into the mood. I started with a really heavy question in episode 1, and I didn't, it was tough to handle. So the first question, almost all of these on Ask.fm are anonymous, but we'll go ahead and post the first question here and get into the answer. So if you're watching this live, welcome. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you. And I hope you get something out of it. Every question will be annotated. So if you're going to watch this broadcast again, you can always go back and click on when each question is, so you don't have to watch the whole, hour and a half broadcast or whatever it's going to be. So the first question is, you talk highly of the benefits of green tea. What would you recommend? Does loose leaf or bagged matter? And who is your supplier? Okay, so this question is great. It's kind of a light question to get the show started off, and I'll talk about green tea because this is a passion of mine, and kind of what I think about when it comes to green tea and why I think it's so beneficial. So I'm drinking tea right now. I drink tea every show, and the reason is because green tea, out of all the drinks that I can think of, I don't think that fruit drinks and other drinks generally supplementing like sodas and things like that is pretty bad for your health. Drinking your calories is one of the fastest ways that you can get unhealthy. Not just like obese. Everybody talks about obesity as unhealthy, but there are so many other ways to be unhealthy, like cardiovascular endurance, inclination towards disease or towards debilitation or things like that. Just general flexibility and problems like that that are affected by alternate drinks. Green tea is a very neutral drink when it comes to its effect on any kind of negative effect on your body. Just about anything. Just about the only thing it might do is you might get some kind of nausea, or if you don't eat with it or eat or drink anything with it. But I'll go into a little bit of what green tea, what I find personally so amazing about green tea. Green tea is a really big on polyphenols, which are these plant-based compounds that enhance your immune system and your ability to generate antioxidants. And we probably hear that word like all the time, antioxidants. What the hell does that actually mean? What an antioxidant basically is that oxidation is the process your body goes through to oxygenate and use your cells and resources. So over time, cells have encoding in them that over time gets damaged or broken or otherwise kind of disrupted with, and your body can't do its job at the same proficiency as it normally does. And what antioxidants do, that we hear so much about, is help your body do its job better, and they help your cells get oxygen and get resources that they need faster. That's a very, very like loose definition without getting really deep into what antioxidants do. They also boost your immune system, and they increase your body's ability to retain and receive nutrients, right? So green tea has the highest count of polyphenols out of any drink on earth. And there are different types of green tea. So going into, let me get a little bit smaller font here. So I'd say number 1 is polyphenol and antioxidants. And we'll just put green tea benefits here. And so you'll find this like will help your everything from mental function, sharpness, overall memory, retention, to things like getting sick less, and health, cardiovascular system, fat loss is a big one too. Your body just runs more efficiently. And so I take green tea largely because I think coffee, a lot of people ask, is coffee good for you? And there's a lot of evidence that says that coffee, unless it's taken like in extreme doses, is fine. And I'm inclined to agree with that. But green tea tends to be the superior drink because it just tends to have a lot more plant-based compounds which do a lot better for your body. So there's three ways to prepare tea, and it's all from the same plant. White tea is the least prepared tea. So when they pick the tea in the field, white tea is like very briefly fried or steamed, and then it's served right away. So the highest polyphenol count, the most beneficial effects of green tea are in the white tea. The actual green tea, what we refer to as green tea, is lightly fried or lightly steamed, a little bit more than white tea, and that tea is kind of mid-range between white and black tea. Black tea is the third one. Black tea is from the same plant, but it's heavily fried or heavily steamed and heavily processed to the point where you're getting the least amount of polyphenols from that black tea, but it's still a net gain. And everything you're getting from those teas is a wide range of benefits. Green tea, I find white tea to not have enough taste to kind of keep me interested, but green tea is preferable, just from a general perspective. The loose leaf is preferred, and the reason is because green tea is sensitive, just like any plant, just like any organic compound. It's sensitive to things like age. It's sensitive to light, for example. Like a lot of different people don't know that olive oil, for example, is sensitive to light. If it's not in a black bottle, then it tends to go rancid, and it tends to have a lot less of the beneficial effects that you'd get from olive oil. Green tea is similar in the respect that if you have it for longer than like 6 months to a year, a lot of the time it's not as effective. And if it's the plant that it grows from really matters a lot. Sometimes you can actually get green tea from plants that are like 200 or 300 years old, and they're cultivated. They're never called organic. So the whole organic movement for green tea is BS because you have to pay a lot of money to get the label for organic for green tea. And what like it's something like in the realm of like $200,000. And most small farms that have the best green tea, they can't actually afford that. So they can't label their tea as organic, but effectively the way that it is farmed is organic in every respect. And so you're looking for those suppliers. You're looking for people that can provide you very high quality loose leaf tea from really old plants. And you have a choice by going Japanese or Chinese. And I would recommend for every tea drinker that's trying to get into it, definitely start Chinese. I still prefer Chinese after all these years, but Japanese, they taste a little bit more grassy, and the flavor is a bit more intense, a bit more robust. And you could equate like green tea to like wine or like any other kind of like really fine tasting chocolate or anything like that. Has a very has a very like high profile in terms of like the differences that it can be in, right? So don't discount it. Like definitely, you'll have a Japanese tea and you'll have a completely different experience than a Chinese tea. And actually, if you drink like a really high end Japanese tea, like a Gaikuro or something, that they can go for anywhere between like $400 to $800 an ounce. If you do that, you might have like an actual spiritual experience. It's pretty amazing what that can do. It's really amazing. I've been lucky enough to have those. So having a good supplier for tea is really important. The only supplier that I use, and I'm not recommended or incentivized at all, is Todd and Holland Tea Merchants in Chicago. And those guys are just top notch. It's run by an old guy named Bill, and every year he travels into the villages in China and Japan, and he makes a specific effort to go out and try the teas. He gets these shipped back via donkeys, usually, in these giant carts, and then they're shipped back to Chicago, where he then sells them. And you'll end up paying anywhere between $30 and $90 to $100 for 4 ounces, which will last you 3 to 6 months. which a lot of people go, well, that's too expensive. Like, why would you spend that kind of money on tea? To which I retort, if you're getting caramel macchiatos at Starbucks every day, you're going to end up spending a lot more money on coffee than you're going to spend on green tea. Because if you buy your green tea in bulk, not only is it going to be healthier, it's also going to be way cheaper as well. And just in general for green tea, I probably can't stress the health benefits of it enough. Everything from just your ability to recollect things to your ability to have all-purpose fitness and all-purpose health, and then just the studies, the astounding studies on the reduction of cancer and the reduction of debilitating diseases, the lifespan increase of people that drink it in Okinawa, in combination with other supplements like fish oil. There is pretty much almost resounding evidence that green tea is probably one of the most healthy things you can drink, or one of the healthy things you can include into your daily diet. It's also very peaceful, and as a kind of a neat aside, it's also something that I've found is an alternative to beer serving for guests. So I had a big problem when I was trying to figure this out. I was trying to figure out, why is it that when a person comes in, it's like very awkward, like you want to serve them something at your house, or and I don't drink alcohol. So I don't have like a beer, like, yeah, man, like sit down and have a beer and talk. I can't do that. And so I found that green tea was sort of the bridge, is that when someone comes into the house, you serve them tea. And the Japanese have tea ceremonies, and you can actually go to school, like a college, where you spend years trying to learn how to do a proper tea ceremony. And so I've studied this quite a bit, and we have these little ceremonies. We have the loose leaf. We go through the experience, and it's just a really good social connector as well. So if you're looking for something to sort of bridge the gap and you don't want to drink, or you're kind of sick of the party atmosphere, it's very positive. It's a really great thing to get into. So let's see. As far as what I would recommend for teas to get started with, the one that's almost always on Todd and Holland Tea Merchants is one called Yellow Meadow Village, and that's been a favorite of mine for years. A lot of tea changes because it's seasonal. Every time that you get I've actually had these like existential moments, because I've had a tea that was so good, and I know I'm never going to get that tea again, because the next batch of that tea will not be the same as the last one. And you'll never have that tea again in that same way. It'll never be like that. It won't even be close. One that I really miss is a tea called Anhui Yellow. It's a tea between a yellow tea is a Chinese tea that is made between the process of green and white tea, and it's delicious. It's one of my favorite teas, but they're very rare, and I'll never get the Anhui Yellow again. I ordered 8 ounces of it, I think. It lasted me like over 6 months, and that was just a true experience. I've never found a yellow tea that is that good again. So I would recommend Yellow Meadow Village is one of the ones that just keeps coming back. That's a green tea. That's a fantastic tea to get started on. I wouldn't go for like the Japanese teas, the ones that are a little bit more involved. So I think that's enough on tea, and I get that question a lot. So happily, I actually am able to refer them to that to this link now when people ask that question. Let me just follow up and see if there's any relevant chat stuff. Okay, so we got one question in chat. Let me add a note there. Oh, and I actually have to add a note too to this conversation. Let me just make sure that. Okay. All right, so I got Ezirus's question. So there's another note here, and there is a certain tea called yerba mate, and I've been getting into this tea like crazy, actually. Yerba mate is an Amazonian tea, and it's drank very frequently in Brazil and South America. It has ridiculous health benefits, and it's super good, and it's really, really cheap. You can get a pound of it for $10 from a company called Eco Teas, which you could just Google. And yerba mate is like green tea on steroids, like super crazy health benefits. and it's really good for you, and it sharpens your mind. And it's the caffeine count is not normal. It doesn't affect you like caffeine does, so you can drink it right before sleep, have all the benefits, and then go right to sleep. Like I'm just now getting into yerba mate, and it's amazing. It's really worth talking about. It's a really, really crazy thing. So much so that I'm going to mention it here in the notes, the show notes. That's how it's spelled, and you can get it through EcoTea. If you are on a budget and you don't want to afford green tea, that would definitely be something that you can get, because you can buy these kind of like $2 little tea bags. Just pour 2 teaspoons into it and then brew it at 170 degrees. Always 170 degrees. No, you don't want to boil yerba mate, or it can be bitter and it can actually hurt your health if you boil it. So don't boil it, but 170 degrees and 2 teaspoons. And that'll get you started with yerba mate. So I've been very excited about that. Okay, Shako says, I drink green tea. It's made by Twinings, but I don't think it's really that good. However, I like it, but don't think it has the beneficiary effects that the ones that Melixia is talking about. Yes, I would actually avoid certain green teas, like Arizona iced green tea probably has more sugar. That's actually, I bring up that brand specifically because a lot of people tell me like, oh yeah, I drink green tea, I drink Arizonas every day, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like you're getting more sugar content in that than you're actually getting any benefit out of the green tea. So if possible, like have your green tea hot, take the time to prepare it, and take the time to find a good supplier. Even if you aren't going to go to like Todd and Holland or like a top-notch supplier, there will be someone in your town who will get you introduced to it. There will be a tea house, there will be a loose leaf supplier somewhere that will get you into that. Definitely take the time to have a great cup of green tea. I will never forget my first cup of green tea. It was at a friend's house in college. I went, I got a Japanese green tea called Sencha Tenbu, which translates to Dance in Heaven. And it was a $90 per ounce Japanese green tea. And when I drank that tea, I had a spiritual experience. I was just instantly hooked. I mean, I've been drinking it every single day since then. So do not discount the experience that you can get from tea. And then like a lot of people also ask, do I add sugar? Do I add lemon to my tea? Like, no. If you don't add anything to your tea, it should just be right out of the teapot. The tea that you're going to get from a high quality supplier is going to be amazing, and it's going to carry its own taste. It's going to carry its own weight in its own profile, in its own personality. So you won't have to worry about getting green. You won't have to worry about adding something to the green tea. Like definitely drink it straight. You're gonna get the most health benefits out of that, and have fun with the process. I always try to my first couple sips of green tea when it's hot. I always try to just take a moment to reflect. And actually, I'm reading a great book. Ironic that it's on my desk. This is not. I don't pre-plan these questions, so I look at them for the first time and then I answer them. So this is just hip fire. But How to Select Chinese Tea. This book kind of ended up in my life. And I'm reading the book right now, and it just goes through all of these mental processes that you can go through, and you'll just see just the wide variety of green tea that there is, and the amazing variety of green tea there is. It really is exceptional. Mr. Pink says, yerba mate has been a caffeine boost on par with coffee in my experience. Yeah, without any of the side effects. Like I said, I'm just getting into yerba mate, and it's really amazing. It's a super, super cool tea. I'm gonna move myself over a little bit here. That's some extra. Okay. I'm really just astounded by yerba mate. It's such a great, it's such an awesome drink. Okay, so I think that's enough on green tea. That's an absolutely great question. Let's move on. Let me check. What is the question here? Okay, actually, this kind of I'm gonna answer a question from chat because this sort of just goes with the green tea question a little bit. So this is, I realize I am not eating well and would like to improve the nutrients I receive and generally improve my diet. What's the best way to do this? And this question is from Ezirus. So this is a great question. And it goes along with the green tea thing, so we're going to answer that here. Make sure that. So this is going to be kind of a long talk about nutrition and some of the ways to think about nutrition. And again, I'm hip firing with this, so I probably won't get all the stuff that I want to talk about right here, but hopefully I can get the most of it. Okay, so food. Let's start from the the very basics, right? Food is made up of macronutrients, and you have two types of nutrients effectively for this conversation. Macronutrients is one. This includes carbohydrates, fats, proteins, and sugars. And then micronutrients like polyphenols, and then vitamins, etc. Okay. So macronutrients are the big compounds that food is composed of. Okay, the body handles macronutrients in different ways. So carbs, for example, are usually immediate energy. So a carbohydrate will be processed by your body first, and then if it's unused, it'll be stored as fat. And the idea behind it, so the body is trying to think, right? Your body is a thinking organism. That actually deserves a question in itself. If someone wanted to ask that on Ask.fm or something, that would be an interesting question. But the body itself is a thinking organism, and the body is preparing constantly for the future, just like we are, right? So what a carbohydrate does is it stores itself as it either is utilized as energy immediately if you're running or doing some kind of exercise, but in our day and age, most of us are sedentary. So what a carbohydrate does is it stores itself in fat cells through what's called insulin. Insulin is basically a function in the body, a chemical in the body that regulates sugar and blood sugar levels, blood sugar levels, to either go up or down to be able to store fat or not. So when you're looking at storing fat, more technically, you're looking at something like IGF-1 or insulin levels or things like that. When you see diabetics, which is insulin gone out of control, it's because your body has stopped responding to insulin. So you have to manually inject insulin so that your body can regulate itself. Otherwise, you can go into a diabetic coma and die because you don't have blood sugar going to your cells properly, right? Okay, so how is that relevant to our conversation? So macronutrients. Carbohydrates, if they're stored in the body, are going to be stored in fat. And fat gets a bad rap, but fat is bad because we're sedentary. What fat was originally used for when we were, a young species was we would go long times without food, either because of seasonal changes or because animals weren't in the area or just because we didn't plan properly or something went unexpected. It is not, the body is not used to eating every day. That is, especially not 3 times a day. That's super weird. And so the body stores extra carbohydrates and sugars and proteins as fat so that when we need to utilize it, we can. When we need to utilize those elements, we can utilize them and not starve ourselves to death. Or we also don't burn essential muscle because our muscle is what gets us through the day and what allows us to do physical activity. So the body catabolizes, which means it eats effectively muscle as a very last resort if it can't find carbs, fats, proteins, and sugars to do it with. Okay, so that's the purpose of carbohydrates and fats. Protein is a building block for the body, and there's a chemical process called ATP which allows proteins to be sent to different parts of your body to build up your system. And also, it's worth noting also a little bit of a note on fats before I go on protein. Fats are oftentimes very beneficial. For example, your brain is made up of, I don't have the exact number on this, but it's something like 60%, maybe even 80% fat. And that fat is predominantly like omega-3s. Not omega-6s or omega-9s. Now I have to go over the difference between those. Think of fats like, in terms of thickness, in terms of the viscousness of the fat. Omega-3s are very slick. They go right through your system, and generally they're regarded as a healthy fat. Omega-6 you'll find that in fish, you'll find that in eggs, you'll find that in a bunch of stuff. Omega-6 is a heavier, more dense fat. whereas omega-9 is your heaviest and densest fat, which you'll find in pastries and other stuff like that. What clogs arteries with fat is when too many omega-9s and high-density cholesterol clogs your veins so that your blood can't get through, and that causes cardiac arrest, among other problems, blood clots and other issues. So eating a healthy diet of omega-3s is really good. That's why you'll hear that broadcasted everywhere, but there's more to it than that. There's still a lot that nutrition hasn't gotten to. That's a whole separate. I got to be careful not to digress here. So there's so much to talk about on this subject. We got to go back to proteins. So proteins are the essential building blocks of the body. They are separated into what's called amino acids, of which they are, including branched chain amino acids, of which there are 8 primary ones, I believe. There might be a few more than that, but those are the ones that are necessary. Each amino acid has a separate function in the body, but generally is what's responsible for rebuilding your muscles, for rebuilding your cardiovascular endurance system, and regulating your entire body. So protein is extremely important. Sugars are also pretty important because they, like we mentioned with insulin, are basically the carriers for things to get to your body. So if you are going to get protein to your muscles, it's actually glucose, which is a base sugar that will carry it there. If you don't have sugar, your protein can't get to your muscles. So sugar is important, but we eat way too much of it. All right, so that's general nutrition 101 without going into a whole lot of other stuff. So a general nutrition advice for macronutrients is you want to limit carbs, eat moderate, healthy fats, eat as much protein as possible, and eat as little sugar as possible. So the normal diet daily is greater than 300 grams of carbs, greater than 100 grams of saturated fat, less than 50 grams of protein, and greater than 200 grams of sugar, okay? This is a normal diet. Most people eat this. And upwards, obese Americans eat 600 grams or more of carbohydrates, okay? In fact, I would say that 300 is probably a very low estimate. I'd probably start that at 4, okay? But the RDA, which is the government standard, and you'll see I have these things memorized. Again, I don't have show notes. This is just going off this. Is less than 300 grams of carbs, less than 50 grams of fats, greater than 150 grams of protein, and less than 15 grams of sugar. So if you look at these two differences, you'll see this is sometimes 25. And I may not have these exactly right, but this is generally where it's at. You'll notice a huge disparity between carbs and sugar. And what this means is that we are just consuming too many carbs. So what's a carb? It's bread, it's flour, it's white flour in particular, it's rice, it's fried stuff. There's too many carbohydrates being consumed, and at the same time we're eating way too much sugar. So sugar is candy and chocolate and soda. Huge, like for example, a single can of Mountain Dew is 46 grams of carbohydrates, or 48, and 48 grams of sugar at the same time, which means you're already hitting your RDA for sugar off one. You're exceeding your RDA times 3 by 1 can of soda, and there's a lot of people that drink like 6 to 10 to even a case of Mountain Dew a day. That's like absurd. And the retort I always hear from people is, well, I'm not fat because I'm young enough, or my metabolism is whatever, that I'm not obese. But what people don't understand about nutrition is that there are many, many other ways to be screwed up rather than not being fat. Like blood clots, disease, metabolic disease, diabetes, and all that stuff is very possible, and you don't need to be overweight to do it. So everyone should focus. There's no excuse for eating or drinking like that, no matter what. There just isn't. You will be unhealthy. You will die at a young age. You will not experience the physical ability of your body, which I would argue is the obligation of almost every man and woman, is to at least get, like, if you want to change your view of the world, if you want to change your view of what's possible in your life and what you think are your limitations, get really strong and get really healthy. and you will see the world in a different way. And my intention with this broadcast is not to insult anybody that chooses to eat this way, or try to get into like a flame war or anything like that. I'm speaking from my own personal experience and those that I've coached. If you change this aspect of your life, it will be the first step to doing what you really want to do, and general self-improvement. You can really change your life, and you won't know until you've really deadlifted a lot, or until you've really eaten healthy for several days in a row and you haven't consumed sugars. You won't believe how clear your mind is and how able you are to act on things. Because so many questions I get, they go into this issue like, I can't seem to do things. I don't seem to be motivated. I don't seem to be engaged. I can't talk to people. I'm socially awkward. They don't realize that just such a massive amount of these things goes back to general nutrition, and they don't realize that what you eat is actually what you are. And if you don't control this aspect of yourself, things that you won't expect will be affected by it. So there's a lot of importance here. A little bit back to the question. So some of this stuff can be said as very obvious, but just as in general advice, we want to, and I'll annotate this specific session. So if you just want the TLDR on this, you can get that. But you definitely want to limit white flour, bread, candy, sugar, chocolate, soda, fast food. These are the ones at a bare minimum. If you don't drink soda and avoid all fast food, expect overall health increase of up to 25 to 50%. If you just don't drink soda and avoid all fast food, you will benefit. You may up to double your overall health. Amazing, right? That's if you don't cut out anything else: white flour, bread, candy, stuff like that. If you do cut out all these things, you can expect to double your health profile at the very least, usually triple, quadruple, or even more. So that's the very first thing I would recommend is what you do eat is not as important as what you don't eat. And I'd also recommend always have one day to eat whatever you want, including the above. And the reason for this is because if you eat a lot of really healthy food and your body gets used to metabolizing simple carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates and things that tend to go through your system very quickly, when you do eat really fatty stuff and really sugary stuff, your body won't know how to handle it. So it's always good to have your metabolism increased to a higher rate when you are by eating these things once a week. So feel free to have like a cheat day. That's like perfectly fine. Even I have them, and I have them because of that metabolic response. And then also increase greens. So this is steamed vegetables, salads, which you can buy from Trader Joe's or food markets, and fruits should be mornings and eaten first. Fruits tend to process the best if they are taken through your system at first. And fruit is a simple sugar and a simple carbohydrate, so it's best eaten after physical activity. So, for example, I'll front load all my fruit for the day right after I work out. Just because that glucose will help the protein that I'm eating with the meal get to my muscles faster and get to my system faster to rebuild it. And that limits soreness and all kinds of other stuff. And then also, if you're going to increase omega-3, and proteins, which means this is fish, wild caught salmon, if possible, and eggs, which are, I would say, no hormones, and then meats, turkey and chicken would be the obvious ones. High in protein, no carbohydrates. And then I would also, as an addition to this, supplement omega-3 in the form of fish oil. I recommend Nutrigold is a very inexpensive brand. I think it's like $30 a bottle and you get 120, and it's very high quality, whereas it's really hard to find high quality fish oil. And then I would also supplement vitamin D3 in the form of cholecalciferol, which I think that's spelled incorrectly. So what vitamin D3 does is vitamin D3 is effectively a hormone that regulates all functions in your body and will affect all-cause mortality. It's sunlight. What it is it's synthesized sunlight, and we don't get enough of it now. D3 is measured in international units, and you need at least 400 per day is the RDA, but I actually think that's too low. I supplement 2,000 per day. And the only way to know that if you're vitamin 3 deficient is a very easy blood test. But if you are indoors a lot, you work indoors, or you play a lot of video games, like a lot of the people that watch this, you're most likely deficient in vitamin D3. Again, I would recommend Nutrigold as a brand for that. You can get that very inexpensively. Take a very small pill that's about this big once per day, and you're going to notice an increase in everything you can imagine, from your overall fitness level to your mental state to depression is a major one. A lot of people get really depressed if they have vitamin D3 shortages. There's been boatloads of evidence that's just suggested that even if you have vitamin D3 and that's the only thing you have, that it's been as good or better than pharmaceutical antidepressants at curing clinical depression as a chemical imbalance, because depression can be chemically imbalanced or not. To some extent, it's all chemical imbalance, but real clinical depression is a serious issue. So the fact that it can have such an influence on that is really substantial. Let me just briefly go to chat and see if I'm missing stuff. Let's see. So spinach, yes, spinach is huge. That's a really big one. Okay, Xenon Blue asks, would 1,000% juice be something to limit as well? Yes, I would limit all juice. I would not drink juice at all. Juice is actually really terrible for you for a lot of reasons. It's actually terrible for you for the same reason as milk is. When you drink juice, you're getting an immediate infusion of sugar. That juice is going directly into your system and is immediately provoking an insulin response. So what happens is any of the existing carbohydrates or fats or things like that that are stored in your system are going to immediately be processed into carried over into fat. So juice and milk is going to increase your fat retention by a huge amount. By the way, I left out a really critical ingredient here, which is sodium. We need to talk about. So I forgot in this normal diet. Normal diet is greater than I think it's 7,000 milligrams of sodium, and the RDA for sodium is less than 1,500 milligrams. So sodium is the other big killer, and sodium can lead to excessive water retention, fat retention, high blood pressure, which leads to blood clots and all kinds of other stuff, and metabolic disease and stuff like that. So avoid so anything with excess sodium, particularly like don't supplement table salt as a part of any of your meals. Like, make sure not to do that. And the way that you get around sodium is you avoid processed foods. Avoiding processed food is going to get your sodium count down to acceptable levels. It's probably okay if you cheat on sodium a little bit, as long as you drink more water to supplement it, because sodium is gonna interact with water a lot better. Let's see. So chat says, I was trying to get rid of soda by turning it into juice. I would rather you drink juice than you drink soda. Soda is really, really bad. Like, soda is going to kill you faster than eating or drinking almost anything I can think of. Like, I would put soda as like just below antifreeze, as like something that can kill you pretty much. So if you're gonna replace soda with juice, I think that's a good bet. Go ahead and do that. There's something to be said also about nutrition, in the respect that I am an insane when it comes to personal development, right? So what I recommend people do, if you go out of your house and you throw away everything you have and you just try to eat like this, like you're most likely going to go nuts. It takes a long time to get acclimated to vegetables and fruits and things like that tasting good, because our society has built itself on, like, we have laboratories where we have engineered candy to taste like the greatest it can possibly taste, and we've engineered food and like Twinkies and muffins and stuff to have these chemicals that just they make your entire body want it for more. And our bodies are already programmed to respond to certain tastes and certain sugars because of fruit. Fruit generally has very sweet taste, which appeals to us, so we want to eat more of it. And what science has done has taken that that idea, and it's created these like Franken monster foods. So if you have been eating, like, if you've been drinking soda and living the high life on fast food and stuff, transitioning to broccoli, you're gonna be like, yeah, this tastes like hell. Like, what am I doing? It needs to be a very gradual ascent into healthy eating. So I would say that's why the two I recommend, if you have the willpower to commit and cut full turkey, do soda and fast food. If you can do those two, you're in really good straits. And if you can add like a salad to a meal once per day, you don't need to do all this stuff. What you're trying to build your self-discipline then, and you're trying to replace soda with like a really good habit like drinking water, right? Even that will make a massive difference. And you're trying to replace fast food with like maybe eating like a salad instead once per day. If you can do that, you're making a huge difference. Like, no one is expecting you to drop all your white flour, all your bread. And like, even for someone like me, I would say I'm very highly disciplined when it comes to personal development. It took me over a year to get like all of that stuff completely out of my diet. It took me that long to do it. Maybe at least a year or two, and there's still changes I can make. So one of the suggestions I have with nutrition and dieting, there's a big stigma around our society where diets are like these temporary things. Like you hear people say, oh, I'm going to go on the Atkins diet, or I'm going to go on this diet or this diet, right? And I want to get you out of that thinking. I don't want you to be in the thinking that your diet is something that you're going to temporarily change, you're going to lose some weight, you're going to get healthy, and then you're going to go back to eating the way you did. This has to be a commitment that you're going to do for the rest of your life. Okay, exercise is the same way. You can't just go It blows my mind when people come to the gym, and I think I've written about this. I wrote about this in my book. You go to a gym in January, and you'll be waiting in line for machines. There'll just be dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of people there with all of these goals. And I'm going to get fit. I'm going to cut down. I'm going to get that beach body. I'm going to look good for the girls and everything. And it's like, you're never going to do that. You're never going to have that unless you commit to this being a lifestyle. Diet and exercise should not just be this thing that you plan to do. It needs to be, it's like part of being human. It is like eating well is quintessential to being human. It is the essence of being human. If you want to experience life, if you want to experience mental and physical things, if you want to be strong and you want to think well and you want to be successful in your life, you need to eat well, and you need to exercise as our bodies and our entire genetic makeup and our entire beingness and the world itself has asked of us. Every animal and everything on this earth is bound to certain laws, and like, we think that we can circumvent those by going on the Atkins diet and doing a month of exercise. Like, you can't. Your body's gonna break apart if you don't have your anabolic and your catabolic systems in check. So think of these things as a lifestyle change, and make a commitment. And I recommend making this commitment immediately for everybody that's watching this show, to decide that you're going to take steps to improve this with the goal of trying to simply be more human. And let me tell you, the experience that I'm talking about, it's not spiritual, it's not religious, it's not anything like that. If you eat good food and you exercise, you are gonna feel great. You're gonna feel confident, you're gonna feel strong. Your body is made and designed to eat good food, have good exercise, and feel good from it. And the endorphins that release and the chemical responses and the way the brain supports this is all conducive to eating well and living well. But sedentary lifestyles have evolved because our brain also looks for shortcuts. Why does our brain look for shortcuts? Because despite only being 2% of our mass, our brains consume a fourth of our energy, right? So 25% of our energy. And so the brain is always looking for shortcuts to try to conserve less energy. And what's happened is society has sort of built itself around these shortcuts, and we are able to do things easier. And so our brain will say, yeah, I'll take the easy route. Like, I won't worry about the long term. And so while our bodies are like just begging and praying for us to eat well and live well, our brains are saying, oh, I'll take that shortcut. No, I'll take that shortcut. And this one's a little bit, this one's a little bit easier, and this one's a little bit easier. I cannot recommend highly enough trying this lifestyle out, even if you're going to just, making this commitment to try to improve yourself over time in terms of general nutrition is going to make a huge difference in your life. Okay. Yes, absolutely. Everything in this show will be syndicated to YouTube, and it will be annotated with times for each answer for each question. So worry not if you can't watch it live. Basically, the live show is just to take comments from chat and to answer questions if you have direct questions about the subject matter, or you have your own questions for personal development. So what about Gatorade? Very high in sugar, high in sodium. Do not recommend. Avoid. What's your opinion on flavored water for things like this? I think that's a great question. I'm going to answer it in a kind of like an indirect way. I don't get the bottled water craze. Actually, to explain this would actually be a total divergence on the subject. Enough so that I would probably have to do a separate question about this. But the bottled water industry is not regulated as heavily as the FDA regulate. Is it the FDA? Food and Drug Administration that regulates the water? I'm actually not sure, but whatever government organization regulates water supplies in America, and I know in before fluoride is designed to cause mental control, and the government wants you to be placid and not be able to get it up and all this stuff, whatever. Generally, municipal water supplies are the healthiest water you can drink in America. I do not understand the craze for flavored water and bottled water. It seems to me that you're spending your money on BS that you should not be spending it on, and there are no real health benefits from that. The whole thing about vitamin water, right? So this is the talk about micronutrients. The idea about vitamin water is that, well, it has vitamins and essential nutrients, but they throw a bunch of stuff into that, and they don't understand how that interacts with your body. So let's talk about vitamins for a second, because that's very relevant. Vitamins are different. Every human being genetically has different requirements for vitamins depending on their origins, depending on their upbringing, depending on their certain deficiencies, their lifestyle, depending on what their parents and from what climates they were from and their ancestors, all kinds of stuff. The only way to get a good idea of what vitamin profiles that you are deficient in is to get a blood test. But generally, people are deficient in D3, selenium, and magnesium, and iron in women, and a couple others. Taking a multivitamin, the reason why there's a lot of studies that are very inconclusive about multivitamins being beneficial is because it's a one solution fits all thing for a problem that's much more complicated. If you want to get into maximizing micronutrient levels, and let me be very clear, you do not need to do this as a normal human being. If you're just living your life and you're not ridiculously obsessed with personal development, don't worry about this. You don't need to be well, I need an extra 1,000 milligrams of vitamin D3 to hit my maximum today. You don't worry about that. That doesn't matter. Generally, by eating good foods that I recommended over here, all of these foods, you're going to hit most of your micronutrient levels. The idea of taking a multivitamin to meet your micronutrient levels and then going and eating a bunch of white flour and drinking a bunch of soda, it's like putting out a fire with gasoline. I have no idea why you would do it. If your base diet is not on point, then supplements and vitamins will generally not help you. If your base diet is on point, then generally you won't need supplements to be able to help your system, right? I realize this is contrary to a lot of fitness advice. I can definitely cite resources that support this from from government research and what's the NCBI research that shows this pretty reliably, that like if you have a good diet, you shouldn't need to supplement too much. You'll probably still need to supplement D3 unless you're tanning. And you'll probably need to supplement selenium, which you can do through Brazil nuts. Brazil nuts are fantastic. 3 a day, increase your testosterone if you're a guy, 50 to 75%, 25, 50%, and also correct a critical imbalance. Also, you get a lot of magnesium and iron through those, so can't recommend Brazil nuts enough. Order 1 pound of them on Amazon for $15. Improve a bunch of problems that you have. Increase your sex life by a huge amount, just Brazil nuts. So huge life hack right there for all you dudes in the audience. What else? Other than that, vitamin D3, all cause. A lot of people say vitamin C, but the truth is vitamin C is very easy to get if you're eating enough fruit and vegetables. You should have no problem with vitamin C. I would only recommend supplementing vitamin C if you're sick, in which case there's a lot of other better stuff to do too, since there's no really conclusive evidence that vitamin C helps with colds or flus at the time of this broadcast. Okay, let me check. Reading the commentary. Okay. Good. I think that's any other questions on nutrition or micronutrient and macronutrient levels? Anything like that? Oh, I see. Would rest and sleep also be a big factor of dieting and getting healthier? The short answer is yes, but that's a really that's a question you should actually submit to Ask.fm, because that's like that's another 30-minute discussion that we would have about that, is proper rest and sleep cycles and stuff like that is a totally another discussion. I'm trying to think of some other like really quick life hacks that you can do. Oh, and also while I'm waiting for any kind of questions, it's actually easier than you think to eat cheap and healthy. I would recommend actually Reddit as a good resource for this. There's a Reddit called R Eat Cheap and Healthy, which is all one word. Also R Cooking and R Healthy Cooking. You can use the panel on the side of that Reddit to get like a million other recommendations for good places to eat cheap and healthy. And like just to go over real quick what my diet is. I eat the same thing every day, so I'll give you a very good idea of it. Breakfast is so pre-workout I do nothing. And then so I'll do 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. is gym. And then 7:15 a.m. within 45 minutes is the following. It's 2 scoops Living Fuel protein, which is I think equates to 21g protein. 1 cup of almond milk, which is 5g protein, 0 carbs, and 1g sugar. And then 4 strawberries, and then 1 banana. And the banana is for this actually has 26 to 36 grams of, or 25 36 grams of carbohydrates, and then a lot of sugar as well. Sugar for glucose transmission for muscle for transmitting protein to muscle, or transferring I think is the right word, not transmitting. And this will generate. Am I leaving anything out? Oh yeah, and then one teaspoon of creatine, which is a supplement that I take for muscle building and for just because I'm a dude. Creatine is really good. If you want to ask a separate question about that, I can get into it. And this is specifically designed so that post workout, it will get me it'll get me engaged, and it'll get my muscles engaged. So that's what I do for breakfast. Then later, I'll usually do 2 to 3 eggs, which is just a simple protein. And then lunch will be 1 wild Alaskan salmon, and usually a Trader Joe's salad, which will be like kale, spinach, tomatoes, almonds, and try to think of what else is in there. Let's see. And then dinner will always be either one chicken breast, turkey patty, salmon patty. Though I try to avoid salmon twice in a day because of mercury counts. Though salmon has the least mercury count of anything, but it's still worth practicing. Again, another question. So many sub questions we have to go over. Let's see. 1 second. So turkey patty, salmon patty, and then I have veg, and then on the side is vegetables, usually eggplant, zucchini, or trying to think, quinoa, and quinoa. Oh god, quinoa is amazing. I could have a whole separate conversation about quinoa. It's like the healthiest carb you can get, besides beans, probably. Eggplant, zucchini, quinoa, and yeah, that's about it. Also beans too. So this will be pretty much what I eat every single day, with very little variation. I have one cheat day, and then I'll just do whatever. I'll go to PF Chang's, or I'll go eat with my girlfriend. Usually I use that day. That's the same day that I take off live broadcasting, so I'll usually go eat whatever. And again, like, that's good for your metabolic response. Like, it's good to get your metabolism rolling, because if you eat a lot of this really healthy food, you'll end up you'll end up slowing down your metabolism. It'll be harder to burn fat. So again, I wouldn't recommend doing exactly this, because everybody's different. This is what works for me, and I have very specific reasons for doing this stuff. Like, for example, if you drink, timing is very important, right? Like, why I say within 40, like, there's a lot of like science here that we don't have time to go over, which is why I'm saying, like, don't copy this exactly. And I'll just give you a very arbitrary example. So, like, the reason I drink this shake between 45 minutes, within 45 minutes of my workout, is because if you're having a very high level high intensity training, or I do deadlifts or very heavy lifting or things like that, within 45 minutes, your muscles need to be replenished by at least 50 grams of carbohydrates and 15 grams of protein. So this is for sure able to get me that result, so that I can get maximum results. But if you drink a shake like this, like, at the end of your day, you're gonna get fat as hell. Like, so make sure that if you're gonna do something like this, like, make sure you know what you're doing. These the lunch and dinner things, the recommendations, this stuff is healthy for everybody. Some things across the board, like fish, kale, spinach, tomatoes, things like that, chicken, any kind of vegetables, eggplants, things like that. Anybody can eat that stuff, and do well with it. So that's stuff that's a lot more general. And then this doesn't include the supplements that I do, but if you're interested in that, it's 2,000 IU of vitamin D3 and 1 to 2 grams of fish oil per day. And then I think every 3 days, 1 gram of vitamin C, just in case I miss it and I'm deficient in some way, which is really unlikely. You don't need to take that. And then I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I take. Most of the enzymes, probiotics, and everything I get is from my Living Fuel protein, which is a really awesome full protein with all the branched chain amino acids. So you don't need to do that. Okay, so is that enough on nutrition, or do we have other questions? And just for the sake of it, I don't actually know how I can pull up. I haven't actually planned on pulling up stuff for the show. If I had a website or something I could show you. At the moment, let me actually just try to capture a page so I can show you some of the stuff I'm talking about as far as supplements and everything. I should just be able to capture a window. Just give me a second there. So, how do you cook your eggplant and zucchini? I use Trader Joe's, just to be honest with you, dude. I'm very lazy about it. I buy them in bags at Trader Joe's. They have a light marinade on them, and then I just toss them on the. I'm believe it or not, I'm as lazy or more lazy than you guys are. I may come off as a really disciplined person because I'm a success coach or whatever stuff. Nobody that knows me in real life would make that claim sober. Nobody would be like, oh yeah, that's a highly disciplined person. Dude, dinner will be I'll throw 2 frozen turkey patties on the frying pan. I'll take another frying pan and I'll throw a bunch of zucchini on there, and I'll go watch YouTube, and then I'll come, or I'll read, or I'll try to do my book a week thing, or I'll come back and I'll just take it off, and that's it. Nothing seriously special at all. The whole idea that this takes a lot of time to to cook or things like that is not really true. Okay, so let's pull this one up. Okay, so I just pulled up my Chrome browser here, and if you take a look at this, this is the living fuel that I use. I need to find the protein. Here we go, living protein. This is quite expensive, but if you're gonna supplement protein, you really need to get a good one. I would not supplement protein. There's a very clean protein from Optimum Nutrition, which is really cheap. And if you can't afford something like this, I'd recommend getting this. But this one has a lot of really crazy. Let's see if we can view the product label. I'll show you some of the really cool stuff this one has, and the reason why I choose to drink it. So I don't know if you can. Probably can't. Right? So we'll put that in there. So all these are essential amino acids. We talked about these as proteins, and some of them are really nice, like L-lysine, for example, is a big immune supplement. There's a lot of ones in here that can that'll benefit you. It also has a 3 times the daily dose of vitamin C. You can drink as much vitamin C as you want. There's no upper toxicity because it's water soluble, so you cannot overdose on vitamin C, as far as I know. Also has iron and a lot of essential other stuff, and then you're getting your basic proteins as well. So this is a really good example of like a protein that I'll take or things like that. In addition, you've got probiotics through this, and so again. I want to limit the amount of decisions and amount of nutrition I have to do. So I will try to take as much as possible in one supplement. This also has enzymes, which help with breaking down food and help with digestion, as well as probiotics, which also help your bacteria and gut flora. So this is something that I will tend to eat because it's an all-cause solution, right? And then, okay, so a couple of questions. How would alcohol fit in? Good or bad in a nutritional diet? Guanhu asks. I would avoid beer, and I would avoid beer completely if you can, because just without getting into the everything, beer is bad. It is. I don't want to go into all of it. There's a ton of science behind it. It's really bad. Look it up if you don't believe me. Hard liquor in moderation is okay. And red wine, actually, actually has very close polyphenol counts to green tea. So red wine in moderate doses, like 2 glasses, I think, a day, is actually, it can be healthy for you. Anything above that can cause problems. So certain alcohols are really great. If you want to drink red wine, that's fine. I can't fault that. I personally don't drink any alcohol because I don't like that it has it takes away control from me, and I'm a control freak, so I don't like that, to be honest. But I would avoid beer. Let's see. Does cooking remove some of the nutrients from the vegetables? That would be 1 second, please. Does someone, let's see. Oh yeah, does cooking then remove some of the nutrition from the vegetables? The answer is yes, but that is no excuse not to do it. Like I again, like, okay, so this is a cool question from Agrit, because I in general feel like this. Like, I feel like eating like this should be balanced with like a sane living style. I will, it's true that I lose some nutrients from cooking my food, but like if I just sit around eating, I recall the study, and I just, like, all the stuff that I talk about, assume that I have science behind it, because I have huge lists of stuff that support this from NCBI and everything. And eventually in the show notes, that stuff will be included. But when I tell you that I don't have science behind something, I'll say it specifically. So here's something I don't have science behind. I'm not sure if this really happened, so take it with a grain of salt. But I heard about a study in a book called Why Do We Decide by Joe and Leather. And the book said that they took 2 monkeys, and one of these monkeys, like, he was fed whatever he wanted, like he had steak and like all this cool stuff that he wanted, and this other monkey just got like raw vegetables, right? And the monkey that got the raw vegetables was like super skinny and ended up being like really depressed, and he lived a long time. But the fat monkey was like swinging around, and he was like pumped, but he died. he died really early of complications related with his diet. And the point was that, like, to some extent, you can go so far with this stuff that you're eating a lot of really great food, but you're miserable because, like, you're just chewing on raw broccoli all day, right? Versus, like, you're eating a lot of fat foods and you're happy because you're eating this great food, but you're really overeating. So the balance is, for most people, is probably somewhere in the middle, and then we kind of lay on we lay on either side of the spectrum, right? For some people, like that's going to be okay. I tend to eat more fatty foods, and I enjoy that. I have a friend actually who tends to eat really poorly, but he justifies it by the fact that he eats very high quality food. And I have other friends that are just like, dude, I only eat raw broccoli. Like every morning, I just like cook my raw broccoli and I go for it. Like, whatever, pick your poison. But don't make yourself miserable over this kind of stuff. Like, you can eat really well. I consider myself eating really, really well, and I'm very, very happy with what I eat. But I'll make some concessions for certain foods that I just want to eat, that I realize what their effect on my health is going to be, but I'll eat them because I want to. Like, I'm going to be the first guy that sits down at PF Chang's and I'm going to order 2 orders of, like, my last order at PF Chang's, to give you some idea, I ordered a chicken lettuce wrap, which is like 4,000 mil. I ate the whole thing, like a 4,000 milligrams of sodium, and a bunch of other stuff. I had a second appetizer and I ate that whole thing, and that was something else. What was in that? I forget what it was, but it was a fried something. And then I had Mongolian beef after that, which is like several grams of like tons of sugar, tons of carbohydrates. And then after that, I went and had Dairy Queen, and I had a large vanilla cone dipped in chocolate. Okay, so why the hell do I look like this, right? Because that's my day. I understand that for the rest of the week I'm going to watch my diet because I had a day like that, and I know that tomorrow I'm not going to eat like that. I'm probably not going to eat like that again for a while. And then I'm probably going to hit the gym extra hard the next day and make sure that I get the burn on, and I work on that. So the differences in lifestyle. I make the decision to eat like crazy sometimes, but I'm aware of that decision. I think people who are very obese or people who are very unhealthy, that control has been taken away from them. So as long as you have the power, as long as you have the control to be able to say, okay, no, I'm not going to eat that, or no, I won't have that chocolate, I won't have that candy. That's when you're in power, and when you lose that control is when you need to be stricter, is when you need to be more serious. But everything in life is moderation and balance. And it's just how far onto the side of the spectrum that you want to fall for that. So it also depends on other things like competitions and things like that. So for example, like right now I'm going to be competing in Tough Mudder, which is a obstacle course that's in June, and so I have a little bit over a month to get ready for that. And so my diet needs to be pretty spot on. I can't mess up a lot. Same with my lifting. Like if I'm doing exercises and running and things like that, I need to actually, like, what I'm doing right now is I'm rock climbing after every single workout that I do, which is like something that I wouldn't do because it's an extreme amount of energy. But I got to train. Like I'm trying to toughen myself up for that process because I'm competing for something in particular. But everything ebbs and flows, right? So there's going to be times where you want to sleep more, sleep less, eat better, eat worse, depending on what your personal goals are. So the only real sin here, the only time that you're really at fault is if you are outside of your own spectrum, in terms of what you want to do and what your goals are, or if you have no goals at all, then that's terrible. Definitely have goals. Okay, so that's a lot on the uh that's a lot on the nutrition. I think it's probably enough on nutrition. That was like a ton of stuff. Let's see. We might have time for one more question. Um Something that doesn't require me to answer it for like, because the nutrition question, like, that takes literally, we could do a whole section, a whole show just on that. Hmm. But it's a great question. Oh, controversial question there. And it does have to do with hmm. I guess I have to cover this one because I have to actually answer. All right, so I have to answer this eventually. All right, so do you believe in the health at every size movement? It's gaining traction. What implications do you think it could have for society as a whole? The reason why I'm bringing up this question is because it's directly related to our nutrition question, so I thought it would synchronize quite well with it. And the question that the way I'm going to answer this question is going to be with a disclaimer. It is not my intent to offend anybody in this movement, because I realize that the fat acceptance movement is something that has been gaining traction for sure. And that would make sense because the amount of obese people is gaining traction for sure. So I mean no insult or no ill will, but I am going to answer this truthfully. And it might be difficult for some people that are a part of this movement. I might catch a lot of hell for this. First of all, let's look at the stats. So is it true that if you are obese, you are unhealthy across the board? The answer is no. The answer is there are people that can be overweight and they can still retain a low body fat percentage or even high cardiovascular endurance. If you ever see a professional bodybuilder, they look huge, but they might be at 3 to 6% body fat, things like that. But this question is very delicate, and it bothers me for this reason. People that don't want to step up and do more physical fitness will hide behind the excuses and the science of this movement to justify a sedentary lifestyle. Does that make sense? So nothing justifies a sedentary lifestyle. Step it up. Get going. Go for a walk. I don't tolerate the excuse. I'm gonna live a sedentary lifestyle. I'm gonna eat whatever I want, and I'm gonna love it because it's gonna make me healthy, wealthy, and wise. No, it isn't. There is very, very few studies, and they're loosely based at the best. That would confirm that issue. Okay, if a person comes, here's one thing that I'm very firm on when it comes to personal development is be very firm, be very clear in your ethics and your morality. If someone comes up to me and says, you know what, I'm fat, I love being fat, I love eating that kind of food, I understand that it could have some health benefits, but you know what, YOLO, you only live once. I don't want to think about, micro counting the calories and everything, and I don't want to deal with that BS. I don't care about being huge. I love my lifestyle and I love my life. Like right away, more power to you, brother. Like go for it, dude. Like eat that hamburger, man. Eat 6 of them. I don't care. That's fine. Like that we should have no problem with how people choose to live their lives. There is nothing wrong with that. Like do what makes you happy. But do not hide behind science. Do not hide and say nutrition and physical fitness and all that stuff is worthless. Do not go and attack marathon runners and people that try to make this part of their lifestyle. And don't be the other side of the coin. Like, you're just as bad as the people that are shaming fat people, being like, oh, fat ass and pig and things like that. Those people are just as bad on the other side, being like, oh, thin privilege and stuff like that. Like, get out of here with that stuff, right? Like, I work very, very hard. I get up at 6 in the morning every single day to work out. I spend a lot of time cooking. I spend a lot of time cleaning. I don't want to hear your shit, and I don't want to hear it any more than someone else, wants to hear me say, "Oh, you're fat, so you're somehow a lesser human being" or something like that. Like that's not true either. Nobody is lesser than another person. The very idea of that, brings up a lot of problems like race and all kinds of other stuff. Like if you're willing to judge someone based on their body composition, then you're also willing to judge someone based on your race and based on their race and based on their, their preferences. Or they like blue versus you liking red. It's a downward spiral. So like a self-actualized person would understand that you want to protect the truth. and make sure that this movement doesn't encourage people to be sedentary because they think it's healthy. That's dangerous. But at the same time, you want to protect the movement in the respect that people should be allowed to do what they want as long as they own up to their own code of conduct and they understand the implications behind what they're doing. That said, would I join a movement like this, or what implications do I think it could have for society? I think fat is here to stay. The only exception to that is if technology gets to the point where it can reduce. We can take pills that reliably reduce that fat or change the body's composition with few side effects. Though it's worth noting that our knowledge of technology, so stuff like 3D printing and things like that, is way ahead of our knowledge of medicine. Our knowledge of medicine is very, especially in the West, is like really rudimentary. We have not made a lot of progress in medicine. The way that we handle a lot of illnesses is still archaic, and there's a lot of illnesses that we have no idea how to deal with, like neurological disorders or things like Lou Gehrig's disease or anything like that. Like, we're just like, don't know, man. Good luck. Like, hope you don't die. Cancer, even still. In terms of medicine, like, we don't even have a really reliable way to deal with the flu. And nasty flus like SARS and swine flu can still wipe out huge portions of the world if they are, if they mutate in a certain way. So nature has us beat on medicine, and I suspect that it will be a very long time before physical fitness and good eating is outdated by technology. We just simply do not. We have not made the progress in that field to the same degree that we have in other fields, which are growing exponentially, such as satellite communications, space travel, and things like that, which we've made amazing progress on. So the short answer to this question would be: do I believe in the movement? I think overall, I wonder if it doesn't do more harm than good, in the respect that it encourages people to live sedentary lifestyles and not experience. What is that quote from Socrates? I'm sure we'd be able to Google it. And I'll bring this up. Yeah, here's some motivational image. I'm sure I'll bring it up on Google image search if you just give me a just 1 second. Let's see. Here we go. Here's the imager of this. I can just get the okay, so just opening that. I'm sure anybody that watches like the motivational stuff knows what I'm about to do here. So this picture in particular, right, reads, "No citizen has a right to be an amateur in the matter of physical training. What a disgrace it is for a man to grow old without ever seeing the beauty and strength of which his body is capable." And that is a really cool quote, and I think it applies to this question. Don't let your life go by without at least trying to be physically strong and mentally strong. It is like by the time you are 70 or 80 or whatever our lifespan's going to be when we hit that, you're going to regret it. It's going to be something that you definitely wish you had done. So definitely like step outside of your comfort zone and do it. Push yourself, challenge yourself. It's something that can benefit you. Let me catch up. A comment in chat that says, in some ways, the advance in medicine has caused mutations to happen at a faster rate. Yes, and things like staph infections as a result of hospitals is pretty bad stuff. Thank you for answering my question. You're welcome. Please do a whole show on nutrition. We could, for sure. Yeah. Xenon Blue asks, do you think that mental or physical fitness is better, or is it a personal thing? I'll take that question just like... And then shortly I have to get off for a call. So we're going to answer this quickly, and then we'll call it. I think that both are essential to being human. The bare minimum I would ask of any person, any human being, is 30 minutes. Sorry, yeah, 30 minutes of exercise 3 times a week, which would include something cardiovascular, walking, running, lifting weights. There's a ask me a question on Ask.fm. Submit this question to Ask.fm. Why do you think that lifting weights is the best form of exercise? And I'll answer that question next show. That lifting weights is by far the best exercise you can do. Period. End of story. No matter what your goal is. But that's a long discussion. 30 minutes of physical fitness at least 3 times a week, and at least 10 minutes of meditation every single day should be the bare minimum. Like if you get you're checked in, welcome to being human. You are now a young adult. Here is your requirements. Like, here is your mandatory requirements for self-development. Meditation 10 minutes a day, and 30 minutes of physical fitness 3 times a week or more. Should ideally 5 times a week or more. Okay, and just the physical fitness. If you walk 1 mile a day, which takes less than 30 minutes usually, you can increase your lifespan by up to 8 years. That's a PBS study, an NPR study that was done on that. 8 years for just 1 mile of walking. And there's actually people that have done the math, and they've found for every minute of exercise, how many minutes do you gain on your life on average? And it's astounding to read those. You can Google those articles. We don't have time to talk about them now. As far as mental fitness, sharpness, improve. I wish I could describe like what something like meditation does. And I'm going to write this down. 30 minutes of exercise, walking, running, lifting, 3x a week, or preferably 5x a week. And then 10 minutes of meditation each day would be just the start of what I would recommend. As far as meditation goes, I wish that I was good enough at English that I could convey to you the benefits that meditation has. Like, do you want to be more successful? Do you want to make more money? Do you want to be more confident? Do you want to solve like any problem in your life? I understand this sounds like snake oil. I understand it sounds like this crazy thing, but shutting your mind off for 10 minutes, learning to meditate, is one of the best things that you can do. It is amazing what you will be able to accomplish. How your speech will change, how your composition will change, how your income will change, how the people you relate yourself to will change, what you decide to intake, and what your self-discipline happens. And oh my goodness, it's just, there really needs to be a section about this about meditation and its discussion we need to do in this show. And there's so many topics around this area that it just goes to show how much this show is needed, like how much we need Level Up Yourself. And I think like other episodes will be able to speak to this. But these are the two minimums. I wouldn't, Xenon Blue, I wouldn't want you to think of things in terms of better or worse. I wouldn't want you to think, this is clearly better because this is something that the physical is better or mental is better. As a human being, you need to do both. 1 second, let me tell. Let me just tell. I have a meeting right now, so I'm gonna jump on that. Okay. Let me see. Quick chat, and then we'll call the show because I gotta go. When is the next show? Every show is at 2 p.m. PST on Sunday. We had a really brief. This was a very rare time where I had to move the show up, but normally it would start at 2 p.m. PST every single Sunday. Again, I had to move the show up because of my other work, and that will not be a case. It'll always start at 2 p.m. PST. What do you mean by meditation? Asked Dope Duck. You mean reflecting back on your day? I mean Vipassana meditation, which you can look up on Wikipedia. It's the art of focusing on your breath and no other thoughts. That's all I mean. 10 minutes of that per day. Okay, I have to call the show here. I'm going to be getting on a call that is discussing production quality for this show and also the rest of my broadcast. Thank you everyone for being here for Level Up Yourself episode 2. We will have another one next Sunday at 2 p.m. PST. And again, if you want to submit questions to ask for this show, which I need your questions. Anything you want to ask, which comes to personal problems, nutrition, I'm linking that right now. Please ask those questions. It'll do a lot of good for the show. And it will really help me because I need your questions to be able to answer. And also, just from a personal point, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you guys coming out for this broadcast. and just supporting the show. Like, it's amazing to me that the people on Twitch and on YouTube want this. Thank you. It really means a lot to me. This is my life's goal, my life's pursuit to do this. I couldn't be happier with this community and the people that want to support this show. So thank you sincerely so much from the bottom of my heart for supporting this broadcast and supporting this show. Thank you. Okay, we'll see you guys again next time.